Yes.
Great, thank you.
Nope, not yet. I don't think.
He's on his way to it. Okay.
I hit record, but it didn't work. What's that now?
There it is.
Recording.
Okay, sorry.
All right.
Okay, it's 7:02. March 20th. We'll bring the Board of Selectmen's meeting to order, starting with a roll call from my right.
Paul Sanderson?
Jim Ralston.
Kevin Forrest?
Ron Morgan. John McDonald. And we have a quorum, and the meeting is being recorded. Okay, I think we're going to have to hold off on the first part of it. Does everybody?
We'll go into the public hearing first.
Yeah, let's go into the public hearing first, okay? I will open a public hearing regarding the Comcast franchise agreement renewal.
Okay. This is a required public hearing pursuant to the Federal Telecommunications Act. And the purpose of the hearing is to consider the renewal of the current Comcast franchise agreement and establish the franchise fee. Currently, Greenland charges a 1% franchise fee. You have a range from 1 to 5% allowed. You're allowed to discuss the financial ability of the franchisee to perform, the ability of the applicant to provide adequate and technically sound facilities, channel capacity, prohibition of discrimination, reasonable service quality in terms of available technology, construction and installation which conforms to state and federal laws, a competent staff able to provide prompt adequate service, and reasonable rules and policies for line extensions and disconnects. Programming and costs are not subject for negotiations. So this is the opportunity to take public questions. And Mr. Brian Christensen from Comcast is present and can answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you, thank you. Okay. Anybody have any questions for Comcast? Go ahead. Just state your name and your...
Steve McKenzie, Portsmouth Avenue, Greenland. I looked over this contract very well. I have comments to make, not so much questions, but and right now.
Mhm.
But I do think we have an opportunity here to look at public access channels. We should put that in here, I think, because even though we may want to do it immediately, this is a 10-year contract. I think, and I've had experience in other places, it's something that we really need to consider. And also, we really need to give serious consideration to the franchise fee, 1%. If we are going to embark on a cable public access channel, it may take some revenues. Right now, this money goes right into the general revenue of the town. But there will be some cost if we decide to do a public access channel. And right now, the fee is nominal. It's very nominal. I have a very high cable bill, higher than it should be, but my franchise fee is $1.68, which is a very nominal fee. Even to double it would be not a huge amount of money. So those are my two basic comments. There are other fine-tuning of this thing that I would be glad to discuss at some other time, but at this point, and I also really feel, and this is based on experiences in other places, that this is a whole lot of stuff for the selectmen to have to consider with all of the pressing matters that you have before you. And a volunteer cable committee, I think would be very useful in analyzing things and going forward, just taking on things that may come along. That's my 2 cents.
Okay. I guess one of the questions that comes to me about getting our own little cable channel for, let's say, all the meetings that we have and everything else is that we're only allowed to have one channel like that. Right now, I think we have access to Portsmouth, and we have a lot of people here who have kids in the high school that, watch the games, and also some people that watch the Portsmouth City Council meetings. But from what I understand, we're only allowed to have one channel. Is that correct?
Yeah, so for the record, Brian Christensen, Comcast, oh geez. That's quite a way to make an entrance. Channel capacity is the tricky aspect of this conversation. There is a potential that if Greenland did want to launch their own PEG access channel, that we would have to take out the Portsmouth one. So Portsmouth might be on channel 20-something here, so if this town launched their own channel, that's where we would put that.
Okay, all right.
So there's
Can
no
I- can
other
I-
options to be able to have
There
both?
potentially could be, but that would be the logical spot, is one of those, you're served off the same head end as Portsmouth, so we would not carve out channel, for hypothetical sake, we wouldn't carve out channel 65 and put the local PEG channel in that. We would put it where kind of the other ones off the head end, the network are.
Can I just ask a question in that regard? Because there is a local channel,
With your back.
there is a local channel 13 also, in addition to the 22, but that's used by Comcast as regular broadcast channel right now.
Yeah, that would be, we would be looking somewhere in the 20s to put that, put a local PEG channel if that community
Okay.
were to go in that
Is that
direction.
just listed on the guide as a local channel for?
So the channel may not have anything on it, but the bandwidth in that.
I mean, it is used now for one of the network affiliates.
Yeah, so we would not be relocating other channels. The only channel we would be,
It's 22.
would be open to doing is something where one of the PEG channels are right now.
Okay.
Is that live stream, or is that delayed?
The stuff from Portsmouth?
If we were to have it here?
Well, it seems like what Mr. McKenzie was discussing is something live. That's,
Which is what Portsmouth.
which is,
And then there'd be reruns.
yeah,
And then we could also put a community
Bulletin board.
bulletin board on it that would scroll during dead periods.
And when are the meetings that are recorded, when are they put on the town website? How many hours of this meeting will this
2 days.
2 days?
But it's just audio, it's
That's
not
just
video.
audio, I know,
Correct.
it's just audio. But it's on the town website.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions? for
Schwab, do you want to address this letter?
Leonard Schwab, 3 Bay Drive West. I provided a letter, which you have. Following up on Mr. McKenzie's comment, my thinking was to form a communication services study committee. Mr. McKenzie called it a cable committee. I'm thinking a little bit more broadly than that, but I do believe it's time for something like that. The other point is, I don't believe the technical efficacy is good on cable for a lot of things. I have to reset the router on the internet almost daily. Today I was working on a document, I watched the whole screen go down, came back up. It's clearly just a cable problem, not a power problem. So I'm not happy with the quality of the service. And for what I pay, it's not worth it, especially because Earthlink ceased, or Comcast ceased their agreement with Earthlink effective the 1st of this year. I had Earthlink service for many years at $45 a month. Comcast took over and immediately jacked it up to 50. I mean, they have a monopoly now. I'm sorry, I'm not happy with the service nor the cost. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question. Mr. Christensen, do you, I mean, I've used, Xfinity and the 1-800 number to take care of technical difficulties, on occasion. And I'll say they've been pretty responsive when I've used it, but do you guys keep metrics as far as, I don't know the number of outages in towns, things like what Mr. Schwab mentions, and, are we within tolerance for what a service provider would recommend or out of tolerance? And that's something our cable committee, should it come to be, have access to metrics and data like that.
So being in the 21st century, we keep metrics of everything. We probably keep metrics of how long it took me to get here tonight. So, Mr. Schwab's situation is not what it's supposed to be, and I will give him my card, and maybe perhaps we can follow up on his stuff. Our network reliability is 99.9% of the time up and running the way it's supposed to be. But when I was a kid, cable television was it plugged into the back of your TV as your TV on channel 3. We all know, my understudy here, his cable television internet experience is completely different than it was when I was a child, and it's complex now. There's interference, there's external factors, there's third-party modems, there's interference from loose wiring on an Xbox from your neighbor's house. So it's literally finding a needle in a haystack sometimes. But we have remote capability to check out Mr. Schwab's modem, see his uptime, see his downtime, when he gives us a call, obviously, to do so. Our network health, our network is a fiber-based network, meaning there's fiber to the neighborhoods and coax from the neighborhoods into the residential houses. We have the most updated network in America, the biggest fiber network in America. Gigabit speeds coming to New Hampshire, I'd say within the next 12 months. Don't quote me on that, but it's in the pipeline. So to your question, Mr. Selectman, yeah, we have metrics, and we'd be certainly able to take a look at Mr. Schwab's, for instance, and I'll give him my card afterwards.
No, I appreciate that from Mr. Schwab's standpoint, but again, with this cable committee, I guess if there is data that's available for, everything with zip code 03840 that committee could use, should they so
I would just
desire, it would be nice to know if that's available and if they could have access to that in analyzing this.
I would just caution the expectation of going down that road. A lot of that stuff we would consider proprietary and we wouldn't share in a public forum. But we can certainly work, in a committee setting and bring in some technical folks and that sort of stuff. But we would not dump a ton of data that's not required by law on the committee.
Okay. Well, it's nice to know that certain things are available should they want to look at things like that. So, okay, thank you.
Just one more comment that I forgot to mention earlier, that we've discussed this before, but I think it's appropriate. The timing of this, especially if we're going to have a committee formed and look at a lot of the fine tuning of this thing, to have a date in this contract for it to take effect that's in there, I think it's a little too soon. It's going to take some time to talk about these things and stuff. So that's just another comment.
Okay, I think if we need to, we're not obligated to come in under any specific time period, are
Could
we?
we have like a 90-day extension?
Yeah, we can certainly do an extension for sure.
Okay, all right, good. Anybody else have any questions or comments for?
Are we always going to be locked into a 10-year contract? Can we make it shorter than the 10-year contract?
Well, it's a non-exclusive contract as well, so if another agency wanted to come in, they could.
To Mr. Anderson's point, that is 100% accurate. I guess everything's negotiable. So,
Okay.
if we're talking about peg channels, and, that's probably gonna lengthen the term of the contract, but if we're talking, just legalese in a contract, then yeah, I could come back in 3, 4, 5 years, 7 years, but, you and your counterparts would have to do this all over again.
Okay, all right, great.
Vaughn, Jim had a question?
Actually, I had a comment. I've been without cable in my den since the storm. I've called at night, and basically the bottom line was, well, we'll have to send somebody out, but unfortunately, my wife and I are out of the house all the time, this past week anyway, so I'm not a real happy camper. I can watch cable in my living room just fine, so I don't know what the problem is, but, and I had TV in there for about an hour after the storm. But how do we complain about things? I know we're not here to discuss programming and such, but how do we make our opinions known, since I've got about 50 Spanish channels?
There's a lot in your comments, sir. If you're getting TV in the rest of your house, I would probably say it's a problem with that individual box. And a couple things can happen.
I don't want you to solve my problem tonight. I
No.
just wanna,
This will take under 30 seconds.
okay.
You can call us, we can send an self-installed kit, we can send you a new box, and they can ship the old one back. I would recommend checking out the My Account app on your Android or Apple device. You can send it to your box automatically, and that may do it. Or there's obviously the office on Greenleaf Ave in Portsmouth, and you can swap it out that way. And obviously we can get somebody to your house, but somebody over 18 needs to be there. The Spanish channels, a lot of those are what's considered must-carry programming. So if they put up an antenna, and they can broadcast their signal, and theoretically people in the seacoast can receive that with an antenna on their TV. Those stations have the ability to petition to be carried in the basic network, and there are a few of them. But there's also a lot of them that are not in the basic network that we do have packaging for Spanish programming. And on your general comment, myself and my counterpart Jay are always available to talk to you individually, or Anderson or whatnot.
Thank you.
Yep, another question?
Go ahead.
Under the statute, we're talking only cable.
Correct.
So we're not talking the whole range of Comcast services. We're not talking about any of your internet services, and we're not talking about any of your telephone services. Is there any other cable provider in Greenland?
Not that I'm aware of.
And yet, we know that we can go to Fairpoint and we can get television, internet, and phone. But I take it that's purely an ISP.
I am not qualified to speak for Fairpoint
You
clearly.
can't get television, you can only get telephone, internet,
With Fairpoint.
Fairpoint.
Although on their site they say that you can.
Right,
Well,
they say
they offer DirecTV
Okay.
And again,
for their TV.
I'm not qualified to speak on Fairpoint, but Fairpoint's under a purchase agreement with another provider at the moment, so things are changing there too.
Okay. So can you tell us, your cable is given to us over a coaxial type system, and is that going to continue here under the terms of this contract?
So as I mentioned earlier, we have the largest fiber network in the country, and we are constantly bringing that fiber network closer to the consumer through a system called node split. So the fiber goes into a node, which converts the light into RF, into the coax, and we are constantly putting that fiber deeper into the neighborhood. 10 years ago, that fiber would have served 200 people. Now it might serve 50. 10 years, it might be fiber to the house. 10 years, it may be 25 people. But the beautiful thing about our network is that it is expandable and upgradable, almost at the whim.
Okay. But I take it you're still committed to providing cable service?
Yes, absolutely.
as opposed to pure internet streaming.
Correct. And there is case law on IPTV out there as well. And case law, I'm not a lawyer, case law basically says if it smells like TV and acts like TV, it's TV. It's AT&T in Connecticut, I believe, that case law came up. But yeah, we are committed to, cable television as a cable television service.
Okay. And here in our town, is there any part of our town that you don't serve?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Can you tell us approximately how many customers in the town?
We have over 1,000 customers in town.
Okay. So that's really the potential for the customers that a PEG channel would reach, right? If we were to have our own PEG channel.
If you were to have your own PEG channel, everybody that has cable television would have access to it because it would be on our basic tier of service.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Go ahead.
I just have a quick one. Am I,
Just your name and,
yeah, Cheryl Strong, Great Bay Road. Am I correct in assuming that if I lose cable for a week, I don't get a refund for that time versus if I lose power for a week, I get a discount?
No, RSA 53C says if you lose it for more than 24 hours, give us a call and we'll give you the credit.
okay. Anybody else? Oh, I do have one. I have a couple of people have asked me, apparently you people give discounts to senior citizens in Massachusetts. Do you do that here in New Hampshire?
There is a senior discount program. It is for needy seniors, not by the fact that you're 65 years of age or 67, whatever.
We become needy when we become 65.
It would be something we could discuss as part of a franchise renewal, but it's generally Medicaid eligible, not Medicare, Medicaid eligible. So it's definitely for the needy seniors.
Okay.
And it is something that we would discuss as part of a renewal.
And that's the same thing they have in Massachusetts?
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's not ubiquitous, it's not universal. So I'm trying to spit that one.
Okay, yeah, all right, okay. Any other questions? Okay, then I will close the public hearing. And I guess this is something we could take up. We've got some information here that we can take some time to digest and bring forth at another meeting. And you guys won't be here.
I would just remark, Mr. McKenzie makes a good point about having a cable committee. And before we went down that road, I'd like to see, and maybe Mr. McKenzie can help us, to see who might have an interest in serving on that besides yourself.
I can't speak for anybody else, but I
Okay, because if we had a sufficient number of interested citizens, fine. If we had one or two, then certainly you could sit here and advise us.
I've already been through this thing with a fine tooth comb.
Oh, I bet you have, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to help
Okay.
in any way.
How many people, did you have the committee in the last town you resided in?
Yeah.
Was there a committee there?
Yes.
How many people did you have on
I
it?
think we had 4 or 5.
4 or 5?
Is there any particular skill set you're looking for to sit on that committee?
No, I mean, I've got technical background in it, but it's a lot of it's common sense, particularly when you're getting into the public access channels and that type of thing. And we got to run things by you folks, so there's no qualifications
Right.
per se. And also, there are some things in here that could be fine-tuned, and it would take a discussion with town attorney, I think, as well, because, I mean, I've outlined them, but I don't know if I know what I'm talking about, some of the legal stuff.
Well, maybe we could put something out on the web page.
On the website or the
And
Facebook
to see if
page?
anybody, if there's an interest of anybody, joining in on a committee or something like that.
And I think if they think about why it's important and why we would want some folks and the type of, I guess,
I mean-
kind of decisions, you know, that we're,
Yeah, and you make it people that, you know, are looking to improve the public access to the meetings, and it's not just the selectmen's meeting. I mean, we got to a point where we did town deliberative sessions, school and town, school board meetings, selectmen's meetings, various community meetings that were, you know, of public interest. And it's very versatile that way.
Sure. All right, let's see, you know, we'll put something on the webpage and see if we can stir up an interest on it, and we'll have you kind of head it up.
Well, that's your
That's
decision.
Just a quick question.
Go ahead.
Not all the
Just
members,
name.
Stephen Gerardo, not all the members on the board like to be videoed. I was sitting next to a gentleman at the last RPC meeting. He was telling me about somebody in town who was on the selectmen meeting, and every time they passed the paper in front of him, he took his pen out. Because he's on TV now, right? But he never signed anything, so.
Right. I've heard the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, I won't, as of tomorrow, I won't know where I'll be sitting on this board. So as a taxpayer, I would be very interested to see a cost analysis on this. Okay, so it's nice to have public access. I'd like to know, you know, the costs involved, if you're gonna be sending, if the meetings aren't here, if they're at the school board meeting, that means you have to set it up at the school, how are you gonna do that? So I would be very interested to see the total cost involved in doing that to the taxpayer.
I think we can come up with things like that, because,
Great.
I mean, initially, in a previous town, we started out just strictly volunteer. It didn't cost anything, because and this is another negotiation in this thing, we got the cable company to donate equipment, training for the equipment, and we had volunteers running it. Eventually, as it got improved, the volunteers wanted to have some remuneration. But that gets back to the franchise fee. 1% right now yields a little over 16,000, I think.
Mhm.
And so for 16,000, we can do a fairly decent public channel if we increased it to 2%, which in my case would be another $1.60. And I had, you know, I don't have a problem. I mean, considering I'm spending $200 a month on the cable with everything else.
Right. We're also asking the taxpayers this time of doing have Comcast to pay for that. Is that correct? Is that just on the bill?
No, it's just on the
It's on the bill, but if we're using the franchise fee, obviously, right now, that franchise fee comes in as general revenue to offset the tax rate.
Yeah.
So if you divert revenue, you're diverting revenue.
Well, I wouldn't look at diverting that revenue.
Just adding an additional percent, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, now I will close the public hearing.
thank you, all good comments. So,
Hey, what?
I said all good comments.
Yeah. Okay, I think we have some people here, we have some presentations that we would like to make to certain people who are, quote, retiring, unquote, from the service that they've provided for the town on a volunteer basis. So we have a little tokens of a little something we'd like to give to these people. And I'm gonna start off with you, Kevin, seeing how you're the liaison to the recreation department, and you have yours, right? Okay, good. And that's gonna be followed by Paul Sanderson.
Please?
Surprise. No, Rex is gonna be presenting that to Mary afterwards.
I'll be happy to present.
I know. So Kevin, if you'd like to,
Wow.
start the proceeding.
Sure. All right, stacks of stuff. Oh, for everybody who doesn't know, this is Brian Pafford, our chair of the rec committee, and certainly known throughout the town for doing, tons and tons for the kids in this town. And, I don't know how long, I guess the rec committee has been established, but know that, in over the past, decade or so, that Brian has certainly brought it to new levels. And for my 3+ years as the liaison, I've seen it grow. I've seen them, with the most caring attitude for maintenance and field upkeep. And, when residents come with new ideas of new programming and things, they're always receptive to trying things new, all in the interest of, offering opportunities for kids in the town to have, try new things, get them involved with sports, with health and welfare, and being able to, I think, get them off kind of on a right track with exercise and team sports and all kinds of different things. So I guess, all good things do come to an end here, and I know Brian's, between coaching Portsmouth High School football and other obligations, felt it was time to step down. But I know that, this town is really going to miss you, and that rec committee, you're a big void to fill. But I just can't thank you enough for, what you've done personally and professionally in dedicating, God knows how many hours to this town and really to the kids in the town. So we have a plaque here, Brian. This says for the Greenland Board of Selectmen and Recreation Committee sincerely thank Brian Pafford for 12 years of dedicated excellence to the youth of Greenland, New Hampshire from 2005 to 2017. So a very small token of our appreciation to but no, I mean, just an awesome job, and I know, Peter and the rest of the rec committee really appreciate everything that you've done. And, a couple meetings ago, the board, actually upon recommendation from the recreation committee, approved in the springtime when it gets nice out, we're gonna dedicate the multi-purpose field of the Maloney Complex after you. So it'll be the Brian Pafford multi-purpose field, and we'll do something again in the springtime, but I think that's the least we could do for everything you've done. So,
Okay, Paul, you want to?
Sure. Let me come right over here to Mary. And if you would stand up, I'd love to give you this plaque in recognition of your service on the Budget Committee from 2005 until 2017. I have to tell you, a lot of those years you and I served together, and the type of change that we have seen in town, from 3 selectmen to 5 selectmen, from a traditional town meeting to an SB2 style of meeting. Mary has done a fantastic job as the chair of the Budget Committee, dealing with probably the most thankless task of any volunteer in the town, herding cats towards an answer, with our finances. Always asking good questions, always asking in the right fashion, always trying to get to the bottom line with the best interest of the taxpayer in mind. So really, we are going to miss that, and I hope that you will continue sometime in the future in your service with the town, but really thank you very much for the time that you have spent with us and the things you've done.
Two more. Okay, John is retiring after many years' service in this town, both as on the Budget Committee, not the Budget Committee, the Planning Board and the Board of Selectmen. Why he decided to come into the Board of Selectmen after going through the Planning Board, I have no idea, but we're glad that he did. He's done a great job for the town. put in an awful lot of time. Again, service that a lot of people don't see in town. But we really appreciate what he has done for the town. We're gonna miss him here on the board, and I know that they're gonna miss him on the planning board. And hopefully after he's taken a little bit of a respite, maybe he'll think about joining us again. Maybe, right? John, on behalf of the Board of Selectmen of the town of Greenland, I'd like to present you with this plaque. And last but not least, Kevin, I got you into this mess.
Yes, you did.
So I suppose I can try to, get you out of it a little bit, but we really appreciate the service that you have given to the town on the Board of Selectmen from 2013 to 2017, and as Vice Chairman for 2016 and 17. You've done a great job. We're going to be sorry to see you leave, and who knows, maybe when things quiet down for you, you might think about coming back too. But thank you very much for your service. Okay. If anybody would like to say anything, feel free to. We really appreciate what you guys have done, really do. You're going to be missed.
You may see me back, but
Just as somebody that served with Mary for a number of years, she's been incredible, and she did a great job.
Yes, she has, yeah. And Brian, you have too. Done a great job. Okay, next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from March 6th. Anybody have any comments?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of Monday, March 6, 2017 as written.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Under old business, we have a Coakley update, I think.
Okay. The thing I wanted to report to everyone is I've been in touch with Representative Mesmer, who's representative from Rye, as well as Representative Malloy. They've been working very hard up in Concord with respect to some of the bills that have been coming forward. Representative Mesmer, in particular, has been in the process of trying to arrange a meeting between members of this board and members of the City Council in Portsmouth. And she has enlisted the help of the President of the New Hampshire Senate, Senator Morse from Salem, in that regard. And we're trying to finalize the time. We thought we had it finalized for April 7th and maybe move back to April 3rd. That was as of 4 o'clock this afternoon. But the point is, Senator Morse is the trustee of the MTBE Trust Fund. And what that is, when the state of New Hampshire received a settlement from the oil companies for the oil additive MTBE that was put in our gasoline and polluted our air, that $300 million came to the state and was put into a trust fund. They've been earmarked with that fund to deal with issues of public infrastructure. They just passed Senate Bill 131, which loaned $5 million to the town of Amherst for the purpose of extending public water lines in that town that were affected by the St. Cobain issues over in that particular area. And Representative Mesmer has been working, frankly, very tirelessly towards having us be heard in that same vein, that potentially we may be able to access some of that MTBE trust fund money for the purpose of a water line on Breakfast Hill Road. And so this meeting is really to have Senator Morse and Representative Mesmer and others see these two elected boards try to talk to each other in that way, to see if there's something we can do to identify alternatives to try to serve the health and safety of our citizens. So certainly I want to participate in that. I want any of you who would like to participate in that to come along with me. I'd like Karen to come along because we're going to be having Brian Getz, who is the head of the water department in the city of Portsmouth there. He's going to be able to give a lot of technical information because he understands their existing system and what they've been doing for studies better than anyone else on the Portsmouth side. with the idea that we will get some discussions going to try to find a way to serve the health and safety of our citizens. I don't know what the answer is. I don't go in there with any preconceptions about the answer. But if we can finally get to the table and start talking about the answers, then we're going to be that much further ahead. That really is my goal for that first meeting, is that we sit down and we develop a structure for how we continue to discuss the issues and serve our citizens.
Okay. I think it's a good idea. I think it keeps the ball rolling, which I think we need to do. So, you know, I will definitely be with you on that meeting. And I know we're going to have, I don't know what Jim's schedule is on that, because he's the only other one here that's going to be there. But is this meeting open? This is going to be a public meeting?
I don't know the answer to that because Representative Mesper is organizing it, but I think it probably should be because if we have a quorum and there's a quorum from the city council, it has to be a public meeting. Again, I don't think there's anything going to be discussed at that meeting that would be called proprietary. To me, it's a meeting about future meetings.
Mhm. Okay. No, I do think it's a move in the right direction. I do think it's important to keep this thing alive and in the forefront, so.
So at this point, it looks like April 3rd at 10:30 a.m.
That's the last word we have. Stay tuned.
Okay, all right. So
Just 2 weeks from
you'll
today.
keep us updated on it, okay.
Yeah, and the reason it's likely to be a Monday or a Friday is because legislature, they do business on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and they don't do business on Mondays and Fridays. So that's when our representatives and senators would be more available to meet. I would also, I didn't mention Senator Innes in this, but he certainly has been involved, and he's the senator that represents us. So everyone in Concord knows about our issues and cares about our issues, and I think that's where we're going to get some pressure to start getting some solutions.
How about Senator Innes's legislation that's going to be tweaked in regard to responsible party?
Yeah, it was.
Senate Bill 240 has been tweaked. It passed the Senate, and what that does is it completely changed it from its first language, and now what it says essentially is that if there has been an indication of a contaminant and the Department of Environmental Services determines that it has the potential to harm people, then they can order continued testing, and then they can order
The responsible
the
party.
responsible party to take corrective measures once it reaches the issue of harm to human health. It doesn't set new standards, but it's a move in the right direction, giving the Department of Environmental Services more authority to require responsible parties to continue with testing and eventually take remedial measures. And it has passed and it's on to the House.
Okay. Karen, is there anything else?
No?
That does it?
Other than, I was contacted by Jillian Lane to put together some data for the Greenland Safe Water Action, looking for subdivision and site plans for everything along Breakfast Hill Road and the depth of wells. I did tell her it was going to take some time, and I wouldn't have all site plans for some of the older homes, but
I don't know if we'd have depth of well for any of them.
we do. Since, at least when Mr. Cushman became building inspector, when, on new properties, when the wells were drilled, the
The
drillers gave us certifications on the water test at the same time.
Yeah, I'm
And
sure
so-
that data is available at the Water Well Board at DES. So it's available, I just didn't know we had.
Yeah, and we won't have it consistently for every property, but I know that it was something that was automatically filed with everything in Falls Way.
Yeah.
From that point or from the time I've been here forward, I've known they've kept them.
Pretty much any well older than 1987 would not have data. Yeah, because that's when DES became
Regulating.
regulated.
Okay. All right, good. All right, the next issue on the agenda is the Parker Drive Way access.
Okay, the last item on this was that the board requested it be sent to Peter Laughlin for their review. Actually, that was from the planning board to send it to Peter Laughlin. Peter Laughlin did review it. His decision is that a driveway access is not an improvement to the road, so the signed agreement remains in place and that's not being compromised. The planning board reviewed that last Thursday night, and their motion is there for you from an excerpt of their minutes, that based on the town attorney's review, the planning board agreed that Mr. Parker is entitled to access to his property through the Stearns right-of-way. Issuing a permit was not within the planning board's jurisdiction. It would be a board of selectmen decision. So I have the waiver. He's not looking for a building permit at this time. But I do have the waiver if the board decides to, the agreement and release to access the private way.
Okay. Steve, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I didn't know that. So he's not looking to build a house right now. He's not looking for a building permit.
He's only looking for access, the same as Mr. Gill got his waiver back 3 or 4 years ago.
Of course, he has access rights, okay?
Right, and he has this agreement that's been signed by the Board of Selectmen.
Yes, definitely, I just read it today. He definitely has access rights. Okay. So, I don't know why we're here.
Okay.
I mean, Dick, you know why we're here? He wants you to just go down to his lot.
We've never stopped him from accessing that road. In fact, he was out there last
A
week.
driveway access.
I mean, right through the stone wall.
Is there stone wall his whole frontage length?
Yeah.
Yeah, then he would have to
Yeah.
open up a section for a driveway.
Then that's a different thing.
That's different.
Actually, it's a public way.
Yeah.
So any one of us could ride down at any time we wanted to.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we've never stopped Mr. Parker from going down to access his land, to check his land, his rock wall or his trees. In fact, he was out there repairing his rock wall. Some rocks had fallen down from when Mr. Gill did his improvement of that dirt driveway. Evidently, the tractor backed into something and knocked it over. He was out there putting it back. Nobody said anything to him. I didn't even know he was out there till I peeked out the window, but I know it was him. But we never stopped him from doing that. Our problem is...
He never claimed that you did.
No, our problem is that we're under the impression that he wants to use it as a house lot, to build a house on by using that road, and that's a different story.
So that is what he doesn't want to build, doesn't want a building permit right now, but he does want to access his land with a driveway into that lot from Stearns Way.
And why do you think it's a different story?
Why do I think? Because when I reviewed all the data from the courts, I realized that rock wall doesn't define the road, okay? The way it was built, and there's a case law in New Hampshire about that too. The road is actually only 12 to 15 feet wide, and that's what David built right down the middle. So I maintain that Parker does not have frontage on the road. He has frontage on my property.
It was Michael who filled the road, not David.
Excuse me, Michael. So that's my hang-up, okay?
See, our land goes right up to that rock wall. That rock wall is on Parker's land. That rock wall was put there by John Lang, who was contracted by the town of Greenland in the 1700s, because out of 13 families in Greenland, he was the only one who had 2 oxen. And he had built himself a nice little rock wall on his side of the road to keep his cows out from other people's, because he only owned 1 lot in the back, plus the road, and to keep his cows out of the other people's land. And then the town said, well, gee, it's a nice job. Can you build us one? Because we've got cornfields, and your cows go in the cornfields. Now, the cornfields also had an access road that ran along Parker's land, and if you access Google Maps and you look down on Parker's land, you'll see that along the line of trees there is a nice wide open path that was used to access those corn rows or those apple rows or whatever. So yeah, there was that road, and then there was the lane that went to John Lang's house. Now, John Lang got his land from the commissioners of the city of Portsmouth in the 1700s, and he got the lane, and the lane went to his doorstep. It did not go to the Gill property. When we went to Supreme Court, they had an expert witness in there who stood up and showed all kinds of maps and diagrams, and there was a shoe factory back there, and this man named Arnold Bricks lived there on the corner. Arnold Bricks actually ended up taking care of the parsonage down on Tide Mill Road, and he actually lived on Tuttle Lane. He never lived on our lane. So a lot of misinformation was given to the court because he was an expert witness, and a lot of money was paid to do that, all right? So we lost. The judges weren't about to read all those deeds. I spent 13 years looking out deeds, making copies, reading them, understanding them, Nobody else did that, okay? So the point is, our land goes right to Mr. Parker's rock wall. That is Mr. Parker's rock wall. But our land starts at the base of his rock wall and goes back. The other rock wall was put there by the original owner, John Lang. And so our contention is that if Mr. Parker goes for a building permit, and yes, he can access his land by going in to correct his wall, fix his trees, whatever, it's agricultural land. We don't object to that. But if he goes for a building permit, now, because his back lot has a 40-foot access to Post Road, and the state is denying him, because of that, he feels like he wants to try another way. But he already has had 2 subdivisions of that land, and his family were involved in both of them. Chairman Parker was the one who first did the subdivision, and he allowed Mr. Parker to come off of his own private driveway that goes back to the old house that was built in the 1700s that used to be a school.
That was actually my family's house.
Yeah,
So,
good.
see, that was the Old Town Farm Road and your family owned it, okay?
That's right.
When John Lang built the wall on his land, he built the wall not for a road, he built the wall to keep the cows out of his vegetables, because he was feeding the whole town with those vegetables.
Mhm.
And on the other side, there was a wooden fence. Well, you know, those dumb cows just knocked down that fence and walked all around. So then the town said, hey, we need those corn, we need the vegetables, we need the tomatoes, we'll pay you to build another wall. So he built another wall. Now he had a place for his cows to go down, 2 walls on both sides, right? But if you know anything about farming, you know when you have rows and rows of corn or tomatoes, you have to go in there with a bushel, a basket, and you have to fill your basket, and you have to come out to a wagon of course it was a wagon back then, and you put it in a wagon and you drive off. So that was a town farm road right there. So there's the town farm road on the other side of the wall, okay? And speaking of, is it a Class 6 road? Yes. Supreme Court had an obligation to get a man to his land, and that's how they handled it, okay? Whether it was right or wrong, that's what it is, okay? The only thing we're saying right now is that we're gonna fight the fact that the road is a Class 6 road, but the rock walls do not define the road.
Okay, so therefore you think you have a reserve strip of land between the traveled way and the rock wall that they would have to cross, that he would have to cross in order to get to the rock wall?
That's what I
We
think.
own and pay taxes on that lane. That is part of our lot.
I understand the ownership of the underlying fee in the land.
Right.
How about the easement of the road over the top?
It's a Class 6 road.
And so why do you believe that you have a reserve strip between the edge of the lane and the rock wall?
Because our boundary lines go over there, they have, since our site plan.
Well, I understand. But we all know that roads don't go in between just where the travelway is. You have to have on either side areas for snow, where you would have the ability to put signs, all these other things. And so why wouldn't there be an easement over the top of the ground all the way to the rock wall?
Because it wasn't a town road to begin with, that's why. But we're making it one, okay? And the rock walls do not define the road, that they just are there for passing the cows over and stopping cows to get out of the vegetables. I know it sounds stupid.
Well, but you think there's a title problem?
Yes,
Also, in order for him to build a house and to create a conservation property, he would have to have another subdivision, and you cannot subdivide off a Class 6 road.
You can with permission under 674-41.
Well, we won't give permission.
It's not up to you. If you read 674-41, that's the key statute.
It says he can access the road. It doesn't say he has the right
It
to
says
take
no.
our land and use it as an entrance to a subdivision.
Well, that's why I say going back to the title issue. Okay, because isn't there also an argument that says the Class 6 road goes all the way to the edge of that rock wall? Okay, you don't have to have a road doesn't have to be just its traveled way. Okay, why would there be a reserve strip of yours in between the edge of the easement of the Class 6 road?
I don't recall ever reading see, our land goes to the rock wall, but I
Well, I
don't
don't-
ever reading that the road goes to the rock wall.
Again, I don't dispute that your deed and your land goes to the rock wall. That's the underlying fee. How about the easement over the top for the Class 6 road?
over the top,
Yes,
but not into a new subdivision.
yes, because that's what you
No,
do with roads. As
Because
a
you
matter of
cannot
fact,
subdivide on a class 6 road.
as a matter of fact, Post Road is that same type of road. Okay, each of the individual owners on Post Road owns to
Now,
the
here's a
middle,
thought for you.
owns the fee to the center,
Here's a
and
thought
there's
for
only an
you.
easement on the top.
Yep, just think about this for a minute. So Mr. Parker, very nice man, owns all this land, decides not to build right now. He decided not to build many years ago when he lost his right to build when the state took away his 40 feet of frontage. Now, supposing something happens to Mr. Parker and he decides, or maybe one of the family members decides, to sell that property. Now, supposing a builder comes in. He's got 13 acres there. He's got over 560,000 square feet. What if he decides to take 400,000 of that and make it one big lot and do a cluster housing and put in 4 duplexes? Now you've got 4 duplexes, 8 families, 16 cars going in and out of that unimproved, unmaintained road every day.
And that would
Not
be,
good,
and that would be an issue for the planning board.
not good.
Right, oh, I understand. And that would be an issue for the planning board. But as to one house, okay, if he came in
How can you
today,
guarantee that?
well, I can because he can't do it without planning board approval. And I can only deal with what we have. But if the man came in and said, I want one building permit for one house, okay? And we said, okay, you're coming in on the class 6 road, and you're going to go in by means of a driveway through this rock wall. You have problems because you believe you have a reserved strip of land that you could exclude him from.
Correct.
Okay. And so that's a title problem that you'd be raising.
Correct.
Okay? And if in fact we said, we disagree, we don't think your title problem is there, here's the building permit, then we'd be back in litigation, which I think we don't want to do.
And this agreement and release has been written that the town will agree to issue a building permit for a single-family residence.
Okay.
Read that, which one is that?
This would be the agreement and release, the waiver of municipal liability for the Class 6 road, which is what the board needs to sign before he can even go to the next step of applying for a building permit. And this is a building permit for the construction of a single-family residence.
I was willing to get a court's decision on that strip without going to litigation. But
Well, a court wouldn't touch it without litigation.
What?
A court would not give you an answer unless a lawsuit had been filed.
Okay.
But that's okay. There's a difference between a declaratory ruling where we're not really fighting with each other, we just want the answer.
Right.
You know, and full-blown litigation where there's a dispute. Okay, but,
You know, there's 3 days worth of work here.
oh,
But I know you don't have time to see it, and I realize that very, very rapidly. But I can lay out the road as it progressed through the years, so you would see that I have a case, some kind of a case.
okay.
Peter Laughlin?
So if we're here tonight and he wants to bust through the stone wall, because there's an RSA against doing that also.
If it's a boundary, but of course it's not destroying the boundary, it just changes it. Okay, and certainly steps could be taken to preserve the boundary. I mean, you can break through your own stone wall.
So that's what he says right now. He wants to go down there, break through the stone wall so he can access his property.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, I mean, he's got 40 foot on
Post Road.
Post Road. Why don't he just drive in there?
Well, it can't be used for access.
It's it's a site plan access.
No,
He can't build there,
you can't use it for any form of access to the state highway.
so the state would be there to stop him if they happen to be around.
Yes, and that's 236.13, and that because Post Road is a state jurisdiction highway, they have said no driveway, which they can do. And we can't stop. So therefore, he has no effective access if he doesn't come down the Class 6 road.
I've written to the DOT, seeing if we can get them to change their mind, okay?
Fair enough?
Okay? We had everything all set up, what we're gonna do here tonight, and it's all destroyed. Because we done. So, okay, where are we? Do you wanna say something?
Well, when this whole thing came down,
Just
Richard
record.
Wooden,
Thank you.
546 Post Road. When this whole thing came down, we fought it, we had it discontinued. But the selectmen didn't notify the abutters. And I was told that, since I petitioned for the warrant article, it was my responsibility to notify the abutters. And then I found an RSA that said otherwise. I didn't find out till after the vote. Now, the vote was unanimous to discontinue the right-of-way. But because the Gills weren't there, and they hadn't been notified, it was thrown out. Now, every member of the board voted in our favor. So I asked what the next step was. And the next step was we get a special town meeting to revote. So I got the petitions up, got a special town meeting, and we re-voted. We lost by 5 votes, with every member of the selectmen voting against us this time.
That's right.
I feel, you might say paranoid, because the reason the selectmen voted for it the first time, I felt, was because they knew it wasn't going to pass. But the second time, they knew it might.
Actually, in the interim, we had received advice about what damages would be payable to the Gills if in fact the road were discontinued.
What do you think about this? This was in my little speech here. Pursuant to RSA 231-43, submit for a petition warrant article for permanently discontinue the Class 6 road to make sure it passes. We were going to put in there, we will exclude the Gills, signs, and heirs forever to pass over.
You can't do that. It's not your property that way.
We will include.
No, what I mean is, it's a public way.
Exclude him from the
It is a public way. If the town took the step and discontinued the way, that's what the town can do. At that point, title reverts to the owner of the land. That would be you. And I think Mr. Gordon in part. Now, I suppose at that point, if you reached an agreement with Mr. Gill and gave him a perpetual easement, that's up to you. That's not up to the town.
That's what we want to do.
But Mr. Gill may not be interested. I don't know. But also, if that were to be the case, then there would be liability to Mr. Parker because he's an abutter, and he would be an abutter to the public way, and he would be entitled to be paid the damages for not being able to enter into his property.
He could enter in his property but not build a house using our lane.
That goes to the measure of damages.
So now the DOT would have to let him use his 40 feet.
Absolutely not. Because already there have been, in that particular area, more than 3 points of access on that property. And under 236.13, it's called the 3 driveway rule. No other points of access will be allowed on that property.
And the people who did that was his father and his sister, and they were on the boards. The
Yep.
town again.
Well, except the legislature did it in the 3 driveway rule.
So I would like to litigate the fact that I have a strip of land there.
Okay. Before you filed the actual lawsuit, I think it might be helpful if you gave your research to Peter Laughlin so we could get an opinion as to whether there is a reserve strip there.
Peter's bias.
Okay? Do you have a surveyor? Or anyone else, a professional who can review your title work and give us an opinion?
Sure.
The surveyor's going to show that the footage belongs to us. All of it.
Again, I don't dispute for a moment that your deeds will show that you have fee ownership of the land to the rock wall. The question is, what is the easement interest in the Class 6 road? Okay, because you have to think of this in layers now. You own the fee land underneath, no question. But is it subject to an easement over the top for the purpose of public travel as a Class 6
Where is
highway?
it defined what the easement is in footage?
Well, that's my problem. It could be a 2-rod road, a 3-rod road, a 4-rod road. I don't know. And
They call it in rods.
They had Mr. Gordon give up some of his land to make the front more accessible from Post Road without having to move his house.
That's right, because we all thought it was a travesty to have to tear down a garage.
Right. But it wasn't wide enough anyway.
Well, because an earlier planning board had given a predecessor entitled permission to put a building in the middle of what was a road. There's been such a lot of mistakes made over time.
Oh, yeah, and we're
Yes.
suffering for it. We
Yes.
have to always suffer for it. I just don't understand that. You're not protecting us at all. You're just always putting it on us.
It isn't that so much, but the question is, if Mr. Parker now has an abutter on this area, does he have a right to enter into that road? Under 674-41, we have criteria that we can use. that would suggest that he probably should. But now you're making a claim that says there's a reserve strip between the edge of the easement area of the Class 6 road and your wall that you won't give him permission to cross. And we would need to have some professional opinion to say that strip exists, as opposed to having the Class 6 road go right to the wall.
I don't mind if he crosses it, just don't tear the wall up.
Well, again,
Step over.
They used to have those little things, didn't they, over the rock
You don't
walls?
think we've climbed over that rock wall enough times in over 40 years?
I bet you haven't had the poison ivy to show it. But
Yeah, we've had that.
Let me, I'm gonna back up what Paul says, I'm not gonna be on the boards. But if I did, then I'd be asking for the same thing, what proof do we have that in fact there is that easement, there is that strip of land that you are claiming between the road and the rock?
I have it tonight, but it's gonna be too laborious.
Right, but that's what you would need to present to any board in
I have
order to get.
I have it all right
informed
there.
Opinion on it, okay.
3 days to work, there and there.
Paul, are you gonna be on the select board?
I am,
I mean, next year?
yes, I am.
No.
myself and
Mr.
Jim,
Sanderson?
myself, Jim, and Vaughn are the three who remain. There'll be 2 new selectmen.
Possibly that gentleman back there.
Oh, Chip's a good guy.
Get a surveyor to look at that,
Yeah.
Steve, it's cheaper.
We had one. Surveyor's not gonna do anything here.
Well, you can give an opinion.
Okay.
I have a hypothetical situation.
Sure.
If I decided to go off that rock wall and get an easement across my 2 properties and bought a subdivided lot from Parker, would that be doable?
The subdivision would be subject to approval by the planning board.
Planning board.
And so, subject to approval by the planning board with whatever conditions they chose to place upon it, it might be. So we couldn't say yes or no at this point, but we would say if the planning board said yes and if the developer met all the conditions, that's a possibility. Fair, John?
Steve could counsel you on that.
I'd say, no, you can't subdivide off of the Class 6 road. You need a 200-foot of frontage on a Class 5 road.
And if he can't subdivide, how can Mr. Parker subdivide? Because he would have to go to subdivision in order to separate his
Well,
land from the
that's another thing.
conservation.
I'll read that other part that I answered, try to answer that. Let's see. Oh, this is a subdivision backlot with an entrance. You would need to re-subdivide to use Stearns Way. And you can't subdivide off a Class 6 road because it's not just a virgin piece of land, it's part of a subdivision. In other words, that piece of land that Parker has is part of a subdivision. Now, you're bringing up 64113, where he could absolve that subdivision, say, okay, now I got a virgin piece of land.
67441 would be using a Class 6 road to access a parcel of land. So far as what we have in front of us tonight, no subdivision is being proposed.
No, his intention is a single-family home and putting the remainder of the land, not subdividing it, into current use.
See, that constitutes a subdivision, you can't even do
No,
that.
you can have 10 acres and you can have 60,000 square feet of your house. It's not subdivided, and all the rest is either in a conservation easement, but there's no strict line.
Correct.
It's still one parcel. That's not a
Current use
subdivision.
is only an artifice of taxation. It's not a subdivision.
That's his
Almost as a
intention.
See,
conservation.
this has come up many times in this town where somebody goes into the planning board and gets a site plan and has an entrance here. Has no intention of using that entrance over there, he wants to sneak in the back way. And that's what we try to stop, and that's what you're saying here, we're gonna let him do. He has an entrance, he has a subdividable entrance.
Can't use that.
Now he can't use that, right?
But the DOT man did say in his letter, are you suggesting that he would be landlocked if he couldn't use this 40-foot strip? So if he's landlocked, it sounds like they would have to let him use the 40-foot strip.
Not necessarily, because of the 3 driveway rule. He would have to have a hearing in front of the DOT commissioner in order to get that extra driveway.
Why doesn't he do that?
The DOT man was out here last week, okay, looking things over again. And I'm just hoping he'll come back and say, he's changed his mind and he will let Parker enter over there.
It's his own family that did it to him. After he had that subdivided lot, they added an extra lot they shouldn't
I've
have.
seen that. Oh.
And they were on the government. They were in the government
I understand.
of Greenland.
I
It's
understand.
bad. It's very bad. It's really sad.
And I don't know when it happened, but the three driveway rule was imposed in 1971.
But this is a dirt road.
Yeah, that's all. It's a mess. They know it's a mess.
Well,
How
they
did-
did that in 1976,
Yeah.
so they were wrong.
Could easily have been at the time.
So where are we right now? We're not gonna belabor this any longer.
Well,
He wants to go down there and break through the stone wall and walk around his land right now.
I guess when you say where we are, we have a request from Mr. Parker that we have to deal with. You have come in and you're trying to give us information saying that we shouldn't do it.
Yes.
Okay. I think we have an obligation to look at the information that you'd like to leave with us before we make a decision. In other words, we have to develop a record that we're considering your information before we make a choice.
And the information would be, where is that road? Do I own part of that land and is a reserve strip? It's not spelled out that way, but back to the 1700s, it's laid out that way.
I don't doubt for a moment that you own the fee interest in the land up to that rock wall. Don't dispute that for a moment. However, the question becomes, what is the actual meets and bounds of the Class 6 road right-of-way? Okay?
I
And
don't
so-
know if that was ever determined.
And at that point, we'd have to say, if it has never been determined, then our presumption would have to be against reserve strips and in favor of the fact that the easement of the Class 6 road extends all the way over to the rock wall.
Mr. Gill only filled a 10-foot portion of it right down the middle. Where did he get that idea?
Again, not Mr. Gill's behavior, okay? Because his behavior was something that was allowed by the town to happen because the town regulates the Class 6 road, okay?
What would the town have told him the Class 6 road width was?
We may or may not, I'm not sure. I know that we have some information here from a recorded
He
plan.
did a 12-foot road.
But you know what they need to have. I mean, you have the road, you have the rock wall,
Yep,
and you're saying, you own this section right here.
yep.
What the board will need is your documentation to prove that. That's what they're seeking. That's what they're gonna need to make a decision.
You wanna go through that right now?
You can submit it, you're gonna have to go through it. I don't know if you wanna go through it or not. You could leave it. It may have to be digested. I wouldn't be comfortable making a decision tonight. I'd have to review it, maybe ask for a little more opinion than just yours. All right?
And
My
after tomorrow,
concern-
you won't be doing this anymore.
My concern is, if the road's wider than 12 feet, then my garage is still in the right of way. And after
And
they
this is
move,
actually a pretty critical. I think this is something that needs to be determined.
By the way-
Factually determined where the road is, what the boundaries are. So,
And
you
I know
think-
there was very
the rock wall is the corner of my garage.
discussion about the 33 feet from stone wall to stone wall.
Yeah, and it's perfectly possible for a road to have variable width.
Right.
It doesn't have to be laid out uniformly.
Now, am I gonna get an order to tear down my garage now?
No.
We already solved that.
Yeah,
Oh, no, I think it's a fair question, but I don't think there's anyone that would suggest that, no.
Right, and you still have the ability to do a driveway onto Stearns Way. They were going to allow a circular driveway. That's written in the agreement, that you still have the ability to put a driveway onto Stearns Way as well.
I had the impression that if I didn't use it, I wouldn't.
No, because it's in the agreement.
But, you know, two cars can't pass in a 12-foot space, how are they gonna use it?
It starts in 1713. No rock wall there, okay? Just a little wooden fence, 1713. And then,
Well, remember too, that under 229.1, the width of the road is what's actually used. So we're not looking at 1713, we're looking at the actual.
that's a
use.
year.
I understand. And we're looking for the actual use over a 20-year period of time,
Yeah, and it's in deeds.
but that's not necessarily dispositive.
So what happened here is Lang built the inner wall, okay? And in 1765, John Lang buys this strip of land. 1765. So if it was a town road from 1700 to 1765, he just bought this strip of land. And the attorney said it was never discontinued. You're right. Back in 1700s, they didn't know enough to say, well, we're going to discontinue this town road. No, they don't do it that way. It's not done that way. John Lang bought it. So from this point on, it was no longer a town road.
Once again, you're saying that it's just the traveled way, but that's not necessarily the case. It's what was actually used for transportation
But in
purposes.
in deeds, they give the width of it.
Doesn't matter. It's what was actually used. That's what makes this so devilishly complicated. Just like you can go down to Tide Mill, okay? And you could do all the research you wanted to do down there, and the width over at Tide Mill is between the barbed wire fences. Because that's what was used for transportation, including drainage.
So what happened in 1774, the town commissioned George Lang to start the wall on the parsonage. This is all the parsonage land and Sanderson land over here. And so what happens is, when this rock wall was finally finished, these farms, they couldn't get to the farm, so there was another tote road put alongside of it that went right around like this, okay? So this is no longer a town road from 1765. And of course, my deeds go over here to this wall. It's actually a set hole in the center of the rock wall. Parker owns half of the rock wall, and we own the other half. Okay, so this is where I am, and I'm going to have to show you the road goes right down this. Not a road anymore. It went right down the middle of this.
But again, you'd have to show a reserve strip that it was excluded.
Indeed.
Okay, thank you. What do you have?
Hey, Steve, just a question for you. What's your biggest concern about subdivide that piece of property and develop it?
Yes.
So all we have to do is put the rest of it in conservation easement for perpetuity, and we can't do it. Because I know that the one that,
Chip, has anybody busted those conservations?
not the one Parker Road,
Not the one Parker Road?
oh no. They tried, daughter tried,
For example,
couldn't bust it.
here we have a deed from 1962 indicating that the road goes stone wall to stone wall, approximately 28.81 feet in width. Okay? And so, if it in fact had been used for 20 years prior to that time by the public without individuals being excluded.
Well, we know it wasn't.
That was for the first subdivision.
Right. I'm not sure what we know. But the point is, it's so highly unlikely that there would be a reserve strip in there.
I think this is yours.
That's my writing.
Yeah.
It's all over the place. Some people threw it away already.
I understand that you've done an enormous amount of research and work. But when you think about it from the standpoint of what was this thing, this right of travel over the top of the land, that's what you're looking for. The road is not the physical traveled way any more than it is out on 33 or that it is on Post Road or any other road. You have to go beyond the edges of it for drainage. You have to go beyond the edges of it for signs and all the other things that go along with transportation purposes. So it's not just wagon wheel width. Okay? And so what could you show us that would suggest that there was some intent to keep people, when they were running a wagon down that road at any time, that they could not travel off to the right-hand side as they're traveling out to Post Road and go on to a reserved strip of land?
Paul, back then, in the 1700s, they would go any place they had to get away from the Indians.
The Indians were gone by then, but that's okay.
Oh!
But that's okay. The point is, this idea of a reserve strip is so completely against what title law is about. Okay? Go do some case law research and you'll find reserve strips are really hated for these reasons. Because what they were like a spike fence. They were designed to keep someone from a reasonable use of property. So unless there's something specifically in a deed that says there's a reserve strip, then I think your land right to the edge of the wall is subject to the Class 6 road easement. I believe completely, 100%, that you own the land underneath that road, right to the edge of the rock wall. You do, subject to a Class 6 road easement over the surface. Now, if he came down there and said, I wanted to trench and put in underground power, then I think you could say absolutely no, because that's your property and that's not transportation. Okay, that's different, because that's subsurface.
So where's he gonna get his power from?
Not my problem, not my issue, I don't
Over the
know.
top.
And maybe
But he's
that,
not asking to build a house right now.
and maybe that comes down the
He's
40
actually
foot. I don't
going
know.
to sell it as the one single building lot,
He's looking to sell it,
as one single building lot.
because we're gonna have another party involved in this then.
Possibly, I don't know.
Possibly a
But then it goes
developer.
before the planning board, and you know, what will happen there. I mean, they'll bet that. They'll bet that strongly.
That's exactly what we're afraid of. Developer gets in there, does a cluster, puts in all kinds of duplexes,
No, they won't let him do that.
then we got all kinds of people up and down that road.
No,
and
they-
It's
you know,
not maintained and it's
We
not
can't,
safe.
we can't speculate with the planning board, but it's not, it's coming off a Class 6 road. I would be shocked if they allowed that to happen.
Anything happens.
My concern is, you say the road's 28 feet wide, and you only got 12 feet where my garage is. Is the board gonna keep their promise not to make me take it down? Or is it in your power?
Isn't that in the stipulation?
That's in
Already-
the stipulation.
That's all done.
That on that final plan, where your garage is not part of the road, and across the other side of it, there's that equal. So
And
many
and
inches.
ironically, that
You
may be,
gave up some land on the left side of that, correct?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, there's a
Right. So
triangle
that
from one
was
side,
the
moved to
agreement
the
that
other
was
side.
made, just basically move that access over.
So your garage is on your property
Triangular
now.
piece to give the viewing is what it was. It didn't widen the road at the garage point. It was still like only 12 feet wide in the garage.
and that may be the most protective thing you have there, because let's suppose someone wanted to put 10 houses in. You are absolutely correct. The planning board would say, how could I do that and come out a 12-foot entrance? I can't do that. So that may be the most protective thing that you have there.
This is the most updated plan, and you'll notice even the engineer on this plan right here, he shows a little skinny road going right down the middle. Now, he corrected all this over here, and he extended it over here, so the turnaround's on Gil's property. That was the agreement. But you notice the engineer drew that road right down here.
No, Steve, if you look at it, it's between the two stone walls. That's simply a traveled way.
This is the travel way. This is what,
The skinny
David
line is a traveled way.
right, this is,
However, what he's showing is the road is rock wall to rock wall.
he is showing, of course, because it's there.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate part, in the state of New Hampshire, if anything between two rock walls is a road, okay?
A right of way potentially.
Yeah. In this case, I'm saying, no, it wasn't, it was a cattle run.
Okay. Except Supreme Court said twice it was a road.
Like I said, they had to get a man back to his land, and that's the way they did it.
Okay. So anyway, getting us back to where we have a request from Mr. Parker that we have to deal with. Do you now believe, after all of our discussion, that you can show us information that suggests there's a reserve strip at the area of that rock wall?
It's never been mentioned as a reserve strip, no.
Okay. Then I think we have to look at it as though there is not a reserve strip and the Class 6 road goes rock wall to rock wall. And the only thing we have in front of us, the only thing, is one man's request for one lot. And so we can't deal with what might be at some other time. But your concerns are very well taken, and if they were to change their mind, that's a different thing for the planning board to look at which point you would be notified and you could have your advocacy then. And I think very effectively, because there's only 12 feet getting out to Post Road.
So tonight, we're just gonna give him permission to go down there to his lot, and not give him permit to build a house.
No, he's not even requesting a building permit at this time.
Okay. So at that time, we have enough time to do something if we're gonna do something.
Probably not. If he brings in plans that are legit, that the building inspector says, yes, that's fine, you can build that.
That's gotta come back to this board for a permit.
No.
No, no.
Not once we take the action that is requested tonight.
If he
Also,
decides that he wants to subdivide, then he has to go to the planning board and,
but if he came in for one house,
Yeah.
that's an action the building inspector could take. We would never know about it, and you would not be notified either.
the same thing when Michael Gill is ready to build his house.
What about a duplex?
Says a single-family house.
And if it were a duplex, the ordinance is about to change, right?
Well, he's got more than enough footage.
Okay.
Yes.
Then I don't know.
Let's hope it's gonna change.
But the building inspector would say on the day that the request is made, does he comply with all of the terms of the ordinance then in force? And if he did, he would grant him a permit for whatever the ordinance allowed at that particular moment.
Well, I have some requests here. I asked to postpone pending court decision and stipulation clarification. And I request that we wait a little bit longer to see if the DOT will issue a response for the new evidence submitted. Okay, so he can go back to his site plan review and his 40-foot strip off of Post Road and show the DOT the Parker one-house lot is safer than Stearns Way. We're trying to prove to the DOT that's where this whole thing belongs and not Stearns Way. Now, do we have to take the DOT to court?
It isn't court. It's an administrative hearing. What's happening at DOT with a driveway permit decision? Division 6 has an engineer, district engineer, who makes a decision on points of access onto state highways. That decision is appealable to the Commissioner of the Department of Transportation. It can be appealed by the person who requested it and was denied. It can be appealed by any other party who shows standing, someone who shows an interest.
We would like that.
Okay, well, that's nothing that this board can control. You would have to speak with DOT District 6 and see if they would have an appeal to the hearings examiner and commissioner of the Department of Transportation to review their decision on this driveway.
That's what we'd like.
Do you think Mr. Parker would party with you on that request?
He might, but he doesn't seem to be, he doesn't come around. I don't know what the problem is.
You might have more weight if it was the two of you.
And if
If
Go
they
ahead.
get rid of Stearns Way, if the case to get rid of it, if Parker let an easement across his property, a road across his property to that easement, and you got rid of Stearns Way, then his 40-foot access would be granted.
Except Stearns Way would have to be completely discontinued as a public way.
Right.
And if that happened, then anyone along that road is entitled to damages for loss of access to a public way.
Which is there's nobody.
Which was Gill and Parker, right?
We had had some advice back at the time that with Mr. Gill, that damage could be up to $900,000. Certainly for yourself for the future. For yourself for the future, not necessarily yourselves, but the people that come behind you. You know, you have a lot of value there with the fact that there's a public way. And so if you were to discontinue it, okay, you're going to suffer damage.
You say it's the appeals board?
If you wish to challenge a DOT district engineer's decision, that may be done by means of a letter directed to the Commissioner of the Department of Transportation under 236.13. The reason I know is I used to be the guy that heard these.
Yeah. And we used to call you a lot, Paul. I was your best customer when you were in the LGC.
Okay, but that's a possible remedy for you here.
Yep. Is it possible that this board would give us that time to do that?
Well, we have to be concerned about Mr. Parker, who's made a particular request of us.
Well, you know, then we should call him.
Yes,
But he's not here, so how can he?
I'm sure we know how to get in touch with him, and you could get in touch with him.
But he's not showing any interest.
why hasn't
He
Mr.
showed-
Parker?
He has showed up here.
He's
Yeah.
showing a
Showed up
lot of
here
interest.
twice.
He has been here.
Yes, twice.
Why hasn't he approached the DOT in his own behalf? Why do we have
He
to?
has, he has.
He may not know what I just told you.
Right, but he did. DOT came in with him here, myself, Mr. Marchese, Paul Hayden, and brought out the plans, and they went out and they looked at it. And then we waited for the letter on
He's
what
denied
decision they
access
would come.
once, and then he asked them to review it again, they reviewed it again. So he's asked, they reviewed it for him twice already.
So he has appealed once?
I don't know what his appeal was, I think it was asking the engineer, the field engineer, to take a second look.
I believe that he has not appealed beyond District 6.
Right, I don't think he has.
So we have to
Because
go
he
to,
didn't want to go down this road.
District 6.
I know about District 6, so we have to have a letter to the commissioner.
That is possible, but again, you'd have to show standing,
Right.
okay? Now, to Mr. Stearns, Mr. Parker obviously has standing because it's his land that's affected, okay? When it comes to the Class 6 road, it's a public road.
Do we discontinue it?
That's an issue for town meeting, not for at least a year, okay? But the point is, today, when he's making his request, right now, I can't think of a reason why we would deny that request for one lot today. And I can't think why you would want to discontinue that road and damage yourselves for the future. I understand you don't want to do it today. That's your choice today, no problem. But if you discontinue that road forever, you've hurt those who come after you, who may see it differently.
Well, it's the entrance that's the problem. Okay.
And again, I don't want to tear down Mr. Gordon's garage. I do not want to tear down your garage.
Next to him, that doesn't mean it's not gonna happen.
No, that's not gonna, I can't see that happening. You know, if you discontinue that, I'm just talking down the road for me as a taxpayer, and I'm looking at what the town would incur as far as, you know, Mr. Parker sued the town, Mr. Gill sued the town, taxpayers have to pick up that bill. I would never support that.
Parker has an entrance. Okay? How did it get to the point where he
I
couldn't use
know,
it?
I know, you know, I wish District 6 had
Okay.
said yes.
How did it get there?
You know,
Okay.
but they didn't.
How did that subdivision get approved and all the ones around it? Those 4 driveways down there.
Steve, I've told you many times, I would like to take Sleepy Hollow south and see that whole section to Northampton. I would be a happy man.
Discontinued.
I'd be a happy man. After all the issues down
They
there.
have 4 driveways going in, 1 road sign.
I don't
Well, you're right.
give up.
You are right. Because that thing was a testament to the bad days of backlots. That's right. You're right. And you're talking 40 years of, gee, I wish we hadn't done that. But it did happen. You know, in the same way that the planning board knowingly allowed a subdivision through your garage. That shouldn't have happened either, but it did. And so here we are today trying to reasonably discuss the best way out of the difficulties. And I appreciate what you're saying, you know, but I don't see how we could deny Mr. Parker's request. And and because of what John has said, the idea of discontinuance would probably face a really uphill battle too because of the damages to people. And I think you're hurting yourselves. Believe me, I completely appreciate what you want to do right now. Think 20 years from now.
We'll be dead.
Well,
I'm already getting wrinkles. Oh, you're looking at 2 heart patients here.
20 years from now, as long as there's
One
a
of them doesn't
wheelchair
watch his
access.
diet.
Right. You can pass both ways then. Okay, is there anything else we need to discuss on that?
I think right now I am comfortable waiting one more meeting to give you an opportunity to speak to Mr. Parker. But if Mr. Parker comes in and renews his request to us and said, I'd like a decision from the board, then at that point we have to make a choice.
I think that's fair.
2 weeks.
You think that's fair, Steve?
Very fair.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're gonna have quite a history book by the time you're all done, aren't you?
He knows
see
more
his
about
office.
this. He knows more about this area
I
than
know
anyone
he
ever
does.
wants to know.
Actually, she knows more than I know.
For 13 years, up to Concord, over here, over there, everywhere, libraries, everywhere.
Well, you think of yourself, you wake up one morning and there's a road that you never thought was there.
Yeah.
It happened to you. How'd you get out of yours? Tell us that. We'd like to know that.
Which area? now?
You had a similar situation at your house,
Which one? You mean over on Bay Ridge?
is it? Yeah, you had, somebody wanted to somebody declared that to be a town road.
Oh, no, you're thinking Great Bay East and West?
Right.
That's not, mine thankfully is Bay Ridge. I don't have to rely on East and West.
Okay, so we'll continue this until the next meeting then.
That's fair enough, right, Dick?
You think?
Do you have a number to reach Mr. Parker that we could?
Yeah, I can give it to you. I'll send it in an email in the morning, because it's in my office.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay.
You were very kind to us this time.
And we appreciate all the hard
We try
work
to
you
be.
all do. We do.
Thank you.
We know how hard it is.
I do
All
my
right.
share too, don't forget.
That's why we know.
All right. Under other old business, we've got the road bond reduction to Van Etten.
And that just came in today. I apologize for you getting it so late, but we got, this afternoon at 2 o'clock, we got the response back from Altus Engineers that the bond reduction looks good and matches what Altus has calculated. So for Van Etten Drive, they're requesting a reduction in the bond of $25,035 for work completed to date with a 10% contingency of $2,503. So the motion would actually be to reduce the bond to $103,796.
Any comments or questions?
It's gone to the planning board, it's gone to the engineer, and then we just finally got it back.
Then I would like to move that we reduce the bond on the Van Etten Drive subdivision so that it remains in force in the amount of $103,796.
Sure. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Okay, review of town administrator's bi-weekly report. Any questions or comments on the report?
The one thing I did want to kind of mention and get the board's thoughts on is the Boston Post cane. The new cane has come in and we have it in the safe. I was approached by the family of Edith Lovering that they are doing a 93rd, I think, birthday for her, a party at Portsmouth Country Club on June 20th. She's in a nursing home, but she's going to this event. She asked her family, do you think I'm the oldest one yet?
Okay.
So it is something that she thinks about, and she would really appreciate that presentation.
So I'm doing the whole can, I guess, does it normally pass, what you said? It's
We
not
usually get a
available, or
replica. The last replica went to Palmyra Sorois. We believe it's still in the house. I have had no success reaching her daughter to get it.
So it normally passes, is that?
Yes. The original from the Boston Post is in the safe. That does not go to a resident. That is extremely valuable. It's made of ebony and gold. These are replicas that the town of Peterborough sanctioned a company to make a whole bunch at one point. So towns can acquire them for $150 through the town of Peterborough.
So what is the process? The oldest resident gets it every year, they?
Generally, it's given to the oldest resident until they pass, and then it goes to the next oldest resident.
Okay, until they pass.
But when Palmyra passed, I've been in touch with the family, and they've scattered.
But if
The house
if we do
obviously
this-
is left in
If we do this type of thing again, do they,
Yeah.
do
And
they
then-
keep the
and they
cane
did
status?
She's working with a realtor to sell it right now. We've tried to reach her to talk to her. The taxes were overdue. They mailed in a check. But we can't peg Lorraine down to talk to her, or Patricia.
Maybe through the realtor.
We're trying, yeah.
Yeah.
The realtor actually drove to Winchester to talk to her.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, with this new cane, if we hand this over and that person passes, when that person passes, how do we get the cane back?
You trust that the family is going to give it back.
but there's no,
I believe this one wouldn't have any problem because the daughter's actually come in and asked about it as well. She's in the process of clearing out her house.
Yeah, I certainly believe the Lovering family would not do anything else.
Right.
but that's.
And some towns actually just buy a new one each time and let the person keep it.
How much is a new cane?
$150.
Okay.
And that way you can bring the original down at the time of presentation and then put it back in the safe after the ceremony.
Correct, yeah.
Is there an actual prescriptive ceremony that goes?
No,
with this?
not really.
No.
Different towns have done different things.
What is
We
that?
did it at town
Town
meeting for
meeting,
Palmyra, but we don't have like that.
Who presents the cane?
Anyone who wants to present the cane, I think it would be appropriate. I have the date and time of that party. I think a select person should be at that party.
You might be an open bar for it.
It's a lunch with the Women's Fellowship from the church, so don't count on the open bar.
Anyway, I don't see any problem.
Iced tea.
Does anybody see a problem with,
No, but I know that when my wife's grandfather got it, he also had a little proclamation.
Yeah. And I can do that. I did one for Palmyra as well. That was red.
Okay, that would be appropriate.
Yep. Are we pretty sure Edith is the right one, the right person?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the next one after that is Murray McNair.
Okay.
well, Murray, how old is this person, 93?
I think
I
90.
thought Murray was 96.
Or maybe she's 90. I have all the birth dates.
I think she's older than 93.
I do too.
And it might be 90. I have all the birth dates, and
All right,
Cal Taliente was the only one that was older, and he already passed.
okay,
Um,
all right. No, I don't have a problem.
Yeah, I
What do you
kinda-
need, a motion or something?
No, just the consensus that that's who would be the next recipient, and we can get things prepared for the June presentation. I can let the family know.
Okay. Yeah, everybody concur?
Sure.
Yeah. When she asked the family, I wonder if I'm the oldest one to get the cane now.
Okay,
They came to me, and
all right, that's good.
gotta get another cane.
Anything else on the town administrator's bi-weekly? Okay, the next I'll ask for a confirmation of the voting hours that have been moved to Tuesday, March 21st, from the 14th, was it?
8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Technically, it's the Board of Selectmen that set the hours, and as you sign the warrant each year, those hours are in there, you're ordering the town to go at these hours, so that's when you set them.
Yeah.
But we have no new warrant for this one.
But this is the hours that started at 8, so it started at 7.
No, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Okay, so I'll entertain.
Well, I make a motion to set the hours of the polls from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Tuesday, the 21st of March, 2017.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Um,
All right, veterans credit?
Yeah, we
Now,
have,
can we discuss what,
Oh, yeah. Who's gonna be at the, who's gonna be?
I can be there, I've got the morning off, so I can be there from 8 till noon. But then at 12 o'clock, I'm beating out.
Okay.
Door.
You were what? Dee Mao Dawi. That's a Vietnam thing, all right.
it was a cartoon, I never heard of that before.
Dee Mao Dawi.
Yeah.
You know, but one GI. All right, I will endeavor to make it at noon time.
I can make it after 5.
Okay,
I'll get there. Actually, about 6.
okay.
I can be there, maybe early afternoon, 2, 3. Get there.
All right, I'll do it from noon to 2, you do it from 2 to 3, I'll go back.
No, I say I can get there, once I get there, 2 or 3, I can stay to the end.
Okay. All right. All right.
The
so-
law is a little bit more flexible now anyway, that the moderating,
Because you can
he can appoint someone as you're the selectman pro tem right now.
All right,
Veterans credit, I have one credit for resident 30 Bay Ridge Road, Martin Forwarder. He qualifies by service and date. He currently gets the credit in the town of Ossipee. I've notified the town of Ossipee that he's switching it to Greenland as his residency.
Make a motion to approve the veterans credit for the property at 30 Bay Ridge Road in the amount of $500 for Martin Watt.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
You'll be getting mine when this is
All right.
Okay, any other new business
First.
anybody would like to bring up?
I have some old business.
Go ahead.
Old and new. As you may have known, we were supposed to have a presentation by the library tonight, and I.
They probably don't know because it was put on the agenda and then moved off the agenda, so they didn't get to see it in
At the
between.
trustees meeting, which I attended this past week, I recommended that they postpone until we get our two new selectmen on.
Good idea.
So they'll be coming the next time. And you will, I think you'll be impressed by presentation they have. I know when I actually saw a picture of what it's gonna look like, it made things a lot more palatable to me.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, for the good of the order. Oh. So we do it the Dutch meeting. Manifest.
I think they're in front of you.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve payroll manifest number 6 dated March 23rd, 2017 in the amount of $50,447.46.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
I make a motion for the general funds account payable manifest number 6 dated March 23rd, 2017, in the amount of $245,372.75.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
And of note on that, the snowstorm, up through, the last snowstorm is not in the bills. It was 51,000 for Jones bills up through March 11th. March 14th is the big storm. Putting those bills into already spent, we have a balance of $40,000 in our snow budget. So we
Pray
will
for
go
no
over,
more snow.
because the 14th one is gonna cost more than $40,000.
So we pulled that out of the snow emergency fund, right?
Right, that will be the only other option at that point, because this is going on the 2017 budget as cut by the budget committee.
How much did they cut out?
50,000?
50, yeah.
So we will have no money. We'll be in the negative come November, December. We just need a nice late winter.
Yeah, we'll be transferring from some other place.
All right, any other manifests?
No, those are the only two.
That's it. All right, any other business? Anybody would like to discuss? Well, you guys, I want to thank you for joining us on the board. It's been wonderful.
It has?
Been a good time. Highs and lows.
No, it's been good.
Getting shot at and that type of thing, but it's been enjoyable serving with you guys, it really
Looks
has.
like there's a little bit of a change in it. For people come back, who knows, but Brian leaving, Mary leaving.
Right.
Transition of now.
But it's the same, except for the school board, always it's the same group of people who sign up. I wish more people would take an interest in getting involved. We just really need more people.
You know, I talk to people and it's time, you know, I mean, it's, you know what that's, I mean, where do you find your time? Your family's gotta come first.
Right.
And I definitely understand that in the course of your business, but,
Particularly selectmen, you guys put in a lot of work.
yeah.
We buried you in paper.
Oh, one thing, I don't know if anybody else gets the New Hampshire magazine. It's Business New Hampshire.
The what?
Business New Hampshire, it's a free thing that comes out if you own a business.
Your new town and city is in your box.
There's quite an article in there on the need for personnel reviews that might make interesting reading.
Oh, okay.
It's basically saying they're a waste of time now,
Yeah,
so
okay.
just point of information, discussion.
All right, I'll entertain a motion, if nothing else, to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn at 8:50.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.
You get your sign all set?
So anyway,